emotions, right? They're pretty much what makes life, well, life. They can be incredible, joyful, and let's be honest, sometimes really, really confusing. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain. We're going to use a bit of science to actually map out that inner world of ours. Okay, let's get into it. We have all been there. That feeling that our emotions are just a messy tangle. They feel so personal, and sometimes they just take over. I mean, think about it. What you call happy and what I call happy are probably two completely different things. And that's really at the heart of why they can be so confusing. And check this out. This is a perfect way to understand the problem. Let's just take the color red. Now, even if you and I have the exact same cells in our eyes, studies show that your idea of the most intense red is going to be different from mine. So if something as basic as a color is that subjective, you can see why our emotions feel so uniquely personal and hard to pin down. But what if we could map that confusing personal world? What if there was a simple, scientific framework that you could use to understand basically every single feeling you've ever had?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. This idea that underneath all that complexity, there is a simple blueprint. Think of it like a set of levers, core ingredients that combine to create every emotion imaginable.
So what's in this blueprint? Well, it really boils down to three fundamental levers that your brain and body are constantly adjusting to create your emotional state. Let's break down each one. Okay, so lever number one is arousal. The easiest way to think about this is like an energy dial for your body. It's just a simple spectrum, all the way from, say, a 10 out of 10, full-on panic mode, down to a 1 or a 2, where you're super drowsy and totally calm. Lever number two is valence. Now, this is about the value you put on that energy state. So you've got your energy level from the first lever, and now you ask, does this feel good or does it feel bad? That's it. It's that basic positive or negative flavor of a feeling.
And the third and final lever is focus. This one is all about where you're pointing your attention. Are you focused inward on what your body is feeling? You know, a racing heart, a knot in your stomach? That's called interoception. Or are you focused on what's happening out there in the world? That's exteroception. And we're always shifting between the two.
So, when you put these three levers together, what you get is basically an emotional GPS. Seriously. At any moment, you can just stop and ask yourself these three questions to find out exactly where you are. So the big idea here is that emotions aren't just these vague words. They're coordinates on a map, defined by these three simple things.
Okay, so now that we have the map, let's rewind. How did we learn to draw it in the first place? To do that, we have to go all the way back to the very beginning, to when we were infants. This is where the foundation for our entire emotional life is built.
When you're a baby, your whole world is pretty much internal. It's all interoception. You don't have a word for hunger, you just feel this agitation, this alertness building up. So you cry, and then hopefully the outside world responds. This is the very first emotional loop we ever learn. An internal feeling drives an action, and how the world responds starts to teach us how to form bonds.
And this was actually studied in a famous experiment called the strange situation. Researchers would watch how babies reacted when their parent left the room for a bit and then came back. And as you can see here, the reactions were all over the place. Some babies were happy and saw comfort, that's secure attachment. Others kind of ignored the parent. These early patterns are our first draft of how to manage our emotions, and they can stick with us for life. All right, let's fast forward to the next big chapter, puberty. If being a baby is about getting the map, then being a teenager, well, that's like someone tossing you the keys to the car and saying, all right, go explore. You see, puberty is so much more than just a rush of hormones. It's a biological switch that flips, giving us this powerful sense of agency. We suddenly have the drive and the ability to go out into the world and just sample things, to test out how different people and situations make us feel on the inside.
And during this time, the teenage brain is going through a massive rewiring. I mean, it's like a total system upgrade. Key areas for emotion, reward, and decision-making are all getting connected in new ways. This is why there's such a strong biological push to spend more time with friends and to test boundaries. It's not just rebellion, it's the brain's way of figuring out what actions lead to connection and which ones lead to trouble.
So what's going on under the hood, chemically speaking? Let's zoom in a little closer and look at the key molecules that are tuning our emotions and our ability to connect with each other.
You can think of a healthy emotional life as this constant seesaw between two big chemical systems. On one end, you have dopamine. That's all about excitement, adventure, that feeling of looking forward to what's next. And on the other end, you have serotonin. That's about feeling calm, soothed, and enjoying the pleasure of right here, right now.
Really strong relationships are built on being able to go back and forth between these two states.
And then there's oxytocin. People call it the trust hormone, but what it really does is help us bond. It makes us more aware of how other people are feeling, and it actually helps our own internal states, our own level of arousal, get in sync with theirs. It's basically the molecule of feeling tuned in to somebody else.
And if you want to see just how directly our biology can shift our mood, you have to hear this story. It's about a patient named Sally who was severely depressed. She had a small device implanted that could stimulate something called the vagus nerve, and when our doctors turned up the stimulation, the change was almost instant. They wrote that, in the course of the next few minutes, her frown disappeared, she became cheerful. This just powerfully shows that tweaking our biology can directly move that first lever, our level of alertness, and in her case, it lifted her straight out of a deep depression.
So here's the bottom line. When you stop thinking about emotions as just vague labels like happy or sad, and start seeing them as a combination of arousal, valence, and focus, you get a truly powerful tool. It's a tool that helps you understand yourself and other people with so much more clarity, and it's the key to building a richer, more balanced emotional life.
This framework isn't just some interesting theory to explain your past, it's an actual map to your inner world that you can use right now. So the real question is, now that you know how to read it, where do you want to explore next?